On May 18th, the SBA announced that starting July 4th, eligible small businesses can combine their 7A and 504 loan borrowing for a total of up to $10 million in the SBA-backed financing. So that's double the prior $5 million combined limit and the highest cumulative SBA financing cap in agency history. And here's how it works structurally. If you take a 7A loan first up to $5 million for working capital, equipment, expansion, or acquisition, then you can access a 504 loan for another $5 million on top of that for major fixed assets like real estate, heavy equipment, and facility build out. So a combined $10 million in government-backed capital at SBA guaranteed terms. Longer term longer loan periods, lower down payments, and partial government guarantee. 7A and 504 loans are different tools for different purposes. 7A is flexible working capital and growth financing. 504 is for major long-term fixed assets. This rule lets you stack them at double the prior limit. For manufacturers and construction firms especially, this matters because those businesses are capital intensive and have historically run into SBA's old $5 million ceiling as a constraint on bigger federal contract pursuits. If you're in government contracting and you constantly feel like you're the last to find out what's going on, I get it. There's a lot of noise out there, not a lot of clarity. That's literally why I built GovCon Ready in 30 on School. Every week, I put out a full acquisition intelligence brief. What changed, what didn't, and what you can actually do about it. We cover regulations, GAO decisions, market signals, opportunities, all of it. Broken down so it actually makes sense. We go live every Tuesday, and you can ask me anything directly. It's free to join. The link's in the bio. If you're just starting to think about how to finance your first significant federal contract, this is the financing landscape you're operating in. SBA 7A is the first loan program most small businesses have access to. The ceiling just doubled. And if you need working capital to hire for a contract, buy equipment, or expand your footprint, start the lender conversation now. If you have been capped out under the old $5 million combined limit, or you just been mixing SBA debt with personal guarantees because the cap was too low, this changes how your options before the end of FY26. So put together updated financial statements and 3 years of business tax returns. Start identifying preferred lender program banks. PLP lenders can underwrite without routing the file to the SBA Central, which speeds approval by weeks. For manufacturers specifically, the SBA announcement also confirms that small manufacturers can access up to $5 million through 7A programs in addition to their existing 504 loan access. This pairs with the $50 million E2G grant and the 90% Made in America loan guarantee. It's a coordinated capital stack, all pointing in the same sector. So if you're considering expansion, equipment acquisition, real estate, or growth financing, mark July 4th. The new limit applies to loans receiving SBA loan numbers on or after that date. Okay, the next item, OMB issued a new cybersecurity memo on May 22nd. The memo rescinds M2131, the 2021 logging memo that came out of the SolarWinds incident, and replaces it with a more risk-based approach. The old memo establishes 4 maturity tiers for log retention that agencies found neither operationally feasible nor cost-effective. This new memo says agencies need real-time event monitoring capability, investigation capability, and searchable, retrievable logs, but prioritized by risk, not blanket mandates. The first step, CISA has 90 days to publish a logging reference architecture, the LRA, due around August 20th. Once the LRA publishes, agencies enter a phased implementation maturity cycle. Contractors' impact is downstream and it's not immediate. So this is not a FAR rule. It's not it's not like a contract clause or anything like that. It creates no immediate compliance obligation for contractors right now. It is a government management memo setting timelines for civilian agencies to modernize their cyber logging infrastructure. The contractor impact is a demand signal. Agencies will need industry help to implement what this memo requires. I want you to understand that this memo does not change CMMC. The memo explicitly carves out DoD, intelligence community, and national security systems from its scope. CMMC is a DoD program, and this memo does not touch it. Firms best positioned to benefit from this area are civilian agency IT and cyber vendors who can speak to logging architecture, event telemetry, SOC integration, data retention strategy, detection engineering, and incident response implementation. OMB is telling civilian agencies they need capabilities many of them just don't have. So that is a procurement demand signal. If this is your lane, tighten your capabilities language now before an RFP hits. If cyber is your space and you're targeting civilian agencies, this is a market signal you've been waiting for. CISA's LRA drops around August 20th, and once it does, agencies start structuring implementation timelines. Position for the pre-RFP conversation before August. On May 20th, OPM issued 3 class deviations implementing the revolutionary FAR overhaul framework in its own acquisition. So a quick walkthrough is FAR Part 38, Federal Supply Schedule. OPM removed FAR Part 38 from its procurements. Schedule guidance moved to GSAR Part 538. That's GSAR Part 538. So if you sell to if you sell to OPM through the schedule environment, the old FAR Part 38 roadmap is not what OPM is using. For FAR Part 39, Information and Communication Technology, OPM moves to the RFO version, which broadens the part. It retains Section 508 accessibility and removes FAR Clause 52-239-1 from future OPM solicitations and makes the old blanket prohibition on maximum experience or education requirements discretionary rather than mandatory. Now, FAR Part 40, Information Security and Supply Chain Security, OPM consolidated how it handles telecom restrictions, ByteDance and TikTok restriction, FASCSA requirements, and safeguarding obligations under a single RFO Part 40 structure instead of scattered separate clauses. Now I'm going to go over that again. For FAR Part 40, Information Security and Supply Chain Security, OPM consolidated how it handles telecom restrictions, different bands, and ByteDance or that TikTok restriction, FASCSA requirements and safeguarding obligations under a single RFO Part 40 structure instead of scattered separate clauses. OPM's own deviation acknowledges that SAM.gov system updates may lag policy updates. OPM's deviation explicitly tells contracting officers they can rely on representation in the solicitation even if legacy systems still prompt for the older versions. So as a vendor, read the solicitation language, not what SAM auto-populates. The solicitation has to govern this in this situation. So a big mistake would be to see removed clause and assume the topics disappeared. When OPM removes the old clause, the underlying topics, telecom restrictions, security requirements, safeguarding, all of that, they may have been consolidated into a different clause structure, not eliminated altogether. So don't assume absence of the old clause means absence of the obligation. Also, don't think OPM removes Section 508 accessibility requirements. The Part 39 deviation explicitly retains Section 508 compliance requirements with only limited exceptions and exemptions. Section 508 is live in the OPM tech procurement. This is a perfect example of why you always read the solicitation rather than assume you know the clause and provisions from memory. Agency specific deviations are real. They affect real bids, and if OPM is on your target list, check the solicitation language for RFP parts 38, 39, and 40 references. If you bid OPM work, especially IT, cyber, and schedule-based work, update your review checklist to check the RFO deviation reference in every solicitation. That's the brief for this week. If you found this useful, subscribe. I do this every week. And if you want the full brief, the live session, and the ability to ask me questions directly, come join us inside GovCon Ready in 30 on School. The link is in the description. I'll see you next week.